Hello everybody, welcome to this wonderful, happy Easter everybody for the year of 2025 of April the 20th of 2025. So anyway, this is the way of how I'm going to describe this is a very interesting, basically the way of how this is, the way how the Easter began in several years ago. Basically what my story was in the Easter way. I'm just going to tell you this in this tarot situation I'm going to read you about, but I'm going to be talking about Easter at the same time. So, I'm going to do this as long as it needs to in this wonderful Easter reading. I'm going to read you and tell you about what I experienced long ago. But anyway, the way how this is going to be. So, if you like this video, please give a like, please give a comment, and enjoy. And it's the way it seems to be. And knowing that this is going to be a very interesting opportunity, this is the way it kind of goes in one way or another. So, you will see the reading I'm going to do, and I will tell you about the reading about of how it's going to be in that way. And this is the way it kind of illustrates the situation, and knowing that this is going to be a very interesting way of how it was. So let me try to tell you this whole entire story, basically about this whole entire reading. So in this reading that I'm going to provide you is that we have the Emperor's upright, the Lovers reversed is where we're going to have basically how that was. The Five of Swords is upright, the Knight of Swords is upright, they once reversed kind of, and the King of Cups is upright. So, let me try to tell you in this whole entire situation where this was a time that I basically felt like there was something happening in this wonderful feeling. And there was a time where, in my own way of how I can understand about this whole entire situation, where this was a very happening understanding. The way how this was, the way how this is going to be very, the way how it was very perfection of how it seemed to be. So let me just do it as the way it goes, and I'll tell you the Easter story as well. So the Knight of Swords is upright, and let me do the Emperor on this side. The Hermit reversed, the Five of Pentacles reversed, the Justice upright, the Knight of Cups reversed, and the Moon reversed, and the Seven of Cups is upright. Then I'm going to go from the Knight of Swords to the King of Cups. Six of Cups is upright, followed the Magician reversed, followed by the King of Cups is upright, followed the Ten of Cups reversed, followed the High Priestess reversed, followed the Eight of Pentacles is upright. What's in the middle of this situation? The Ace of Wands is upright. So there was a time in history, basically it was very interesting of how this reading was, how it was. There was a delusion, there was the truth, there was achievement, there was support, there was the past, there was the Eight of Pentacles upright, there was more of your career. That's the way of how it seems to be. It's very shape of how it goes. Let me try to figure out about what was happening of this whole entire situation for this whole entire Easter reading that I'm going to try to explain it in my own interpretations. So let me go from the middle to the left, middle to the right. The Page of Wands is upright, there's invention. The Knight of Wands reversed, there's no maturity. Ten of Wands is upright, there's burdens. The Five of Cups reversed, there's no grief. Eight of Swords is upright, there's anxiety. And Two of Wands is upright, there's planning. Alright, so that's the way it goes. So invention, anxiety, planning. This is the way of how it was. The Five of Cups, and the Knight of Pentacles, or Knight of Wands, clarify that. That's the Ace of Swords is upright. Alright, what's between the left, middle to the right side? The Queen of Wands reversed, there's no charisma. Seven of Cups is upright, there's a delusion. Page of Swords is upright. Ace of Wands is upright. then the Two of Cups is upright. And what's in the middle of the situation? The Ace of Pentacles reversed, the Seven of Swords reversed, but Queen of Pentacles is upright for stability. So the way of how this whole entire reading was, back in the day of my own time, my own situation about how this was, where you're going to be dealing with a Leo, Aries, Sagittarius, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. There was all these zodiac signs here, but in the way of how this is in my own repetition of the way of how this was how I'm going to reveal in my own interpretations of how this Easter story began, and I'm going to tell you this all because the way of how it was and the way of how I was interacting with about the years and how it was, just going to read you one of the cards that will represent this whole entire story. Let's see, it was the person Waif is self-sabotage, poverty, consciousness of the way of how this is, and this is the way it seemed to be in that way of how it was. So let me try to remember about this whole entire story using this card here, and it was very interesting of how it was. So let me try to tell you a story. So once upon a time, in my own teenager years, I basically, I was sleeping in about a few, basically like I was like an early riser. I was, doing how it is. But anyway, in the year of 2012, when I was 16 years old back then, I basically, it was Easter. It was getting close to Easter, and I was, being happy, being wonderful. But this is the way of how it was, right? So, anyway, it was basically sunshine. It was like sunshine like this, and it was just like appearing of being where it was. And I'm sleeping in my bedroom. I'm sleeping. And where you got a conscious feeling that you're having your own consciousness. Well, anyway, I used my own gut feelings. Like I'm thinking, okay, this is the way of how it was. So while I'm sleeping, I basically turned against the wall. I sleep by the wall, and I'm just sleeping. Just pretend I'm sleeping. All of a sudden, I hear basically a plastic going underneath a pillow or something. I turned towards the pillow, beside the wall. So I was sleeping on the right side of the wall, but then I turned towards my pillow, and I turned and I look underneath my pillow, and I look, and there's plastic coming, there's a kind of wrap plastic thing, and it was coming. And all of a sudden, I look and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm not the only one that is in this bedroom. I'm not the only one. And so while this plastic is going through my pillow, I look at it. It's like a chocolate bunny. I'm thinking, oh, okay. Now this is very interesting. Now there's a chocolate bunny here. I'm thinking, okay, this is very interesting. Underneath my pillow. Now I appear to look up, and I see. Now, this is going to be very, very interesting, but this is like how bizarre this is going to be. The way of how I was seeing it, there was the real Easter bunny, the real thing. It was all white. It had the black eyes kind of thing, and it looked at me. I looked at him, and then all of a sudden he like disappeared. I'm thinking, wow, this is very interesting, because I felt like, I wasn't the only one that was in the bedroom. I wasn't. But, that was my story, because back in the day in 2012, right, when I was 16 years old, it was basically how this story went, right? Like I met the real is Easter Bunny, because I basically, met well, not met, but seen, right? Seen and met at the same time. But the way of how this was, I basically appeared to be like, wow, like this is true. This is the way it happened, right? And so on and so forth. That the way of how this was, it's like that's the way it seems to be. Like when I was looking at um, the Eight of Swords here that represents anxiety, I was like feeling like I was feeling a little bit sad because it's like I wanted to talk to the Easter Bunny and say, all right, well, how it was or anything else, but you know it didn't take that long. It was like disappearing and saying, all right, I gotta go. That's what the Easter Bunny was doing. But how fast it was, right? How fast it was seemed to be, and I felt like I was a little bit kind of sad a little bit because I wanted to like talk to the Easter Bunny or something like that. But I guess he was in a hurry, like he was in a rush. That's what it was. Then I had basically I had my own the Page of Swords stuff, right? Because I had basically education. I was like being educated about what the Easter Bunny did back in the day, or when it was how it was. So that's how it was seen to be. But anyway, the point being is that in this way of how I'm going to redo this way of how it was back in the day, it was basically how I'm just gonna say this. Uh, so there was information of here, and it was basically saying so there was bunnies and eggs in this whole entire reading about I'm going to tell you of, and it was basically how it seemed to be. So let me try to read you about this whole entire way of how it was. So bunnies and eggs, it says, Easter is a highly commercialized holiday when tons of chocolate is sold in the form of Easter eggs and Easter bunnies. The Easter bunny brings a basket full of goodies to children for Easter. Sometimes the gifts are hidden, so children have to look for them. This is called an egg hunt. Rabbits and eggs are symbols of fertility and were first mentioned in German literature as early as the 1600s. That was way back when, right? Way back when. So that was a little bit of history back in the day. What else? There was Easter traditions. Um, there was Lent of the Catholic religion. So this is way back of how it was. So that's why this is very interesting of how it began. But that's the way of how this is my kind of Easter story that I'm trying to tell you all. But the way of how this is, that's the way it seems to be. So I was like using my own consciousness. I was using my own way of saying, all right, well, this is the way it was. This is the way it happened. This is the majority of it was. So this is the way it seemed to be, and that's the way it kind of concludes, right? So that's how it was, the way it seemed to be, right? So that's the way it kind of illustrates that. So that's why it was very interesting indeed. But this is the way it kind of happens. This is the way of how it kind of concludes. But that's the way it kind of goes, and this is the way it seems to be. So before I let you all go, try to pay attention about what I was telling you about this whole entire reading. But the way of how my Easter story went, that's how it was back in the day. So this is the way it was, and this is the way it seems to be. But enjoy, and this is the way it was. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful time, and I'll see you next time. Enjoy, and this is the way it was. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time when I do. But thank you so much. Bye for now, really. Thank you, and bye.